Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Look Ahead. We've got a rammed programme tonight with everything that Bruce has been saying today and spouting off his rubbish again. We've got Rich from Villa, who's going to talk about some injuries and concerns, but also going to go through his first 11 that he thinks will start tomorrow night. And I've got Craig from last week again on, going to talk all things NUFC and about our injury updates and hopefully 3 points for the Toon and Villa go home crying instead of us going crying. But this is the Look Ahead. Brilliant. So let's not keep them waiting too long. Let's bring them straight in. There's Craig. Evening, Craig. How are we doing?
I'm fine, thanks, Barry. How are you?
Good. Yeah, good, man. Been a busy day, but we're almost at match day. Really looking forward to it. Good. Let's bring Richard in from Villa. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks, Barry. Thanks for having me on.
No, thanks for coming on. I believe obviously you're a Villa fan, but you're also you live up north. Is that correct?
I do, yes, mate. I live in Newcastle, live in Walker. So, yeah, I've been up here for about 10, 15 years now. So, yeah, big Villa fan, but got a good amount of affection for Newcastle as well.
That's what we like to hear. You moved to the best city in the world, mate. Oh, there you are. Yeah, Craig, you're not far from there, are you?
Yeah, not too far from Walker.
Oh, nice,
good,
nice.
Good. So, just to kick off the show, I just want to start off with saying, obviously Pavel Srnicek would have been his 53rd birthday today. And what a goalkeeper he was for NUFC, and he's sadly missed. He's obviously passed away for a few years now. So, massive respect to Pav. He was always a Geordie in my eyes, and he was part of that Keegan era. Can you remember much about that one, Richard? About obviously watching Newcastle rip most teams apart back in those days, didn't we?
Yeah. I mean, just such an entertaining side, and very much echoed by the goalkeeper that you had in Pavel Srnicek. Always sort of a character. Would always do the elaborate or the unconventional. So, yeah, it was really sort of suited to that team and that style of play.
Yeah, we loved him, didn't we, Craig?
Yeah, he is a legend. He might not have been our best goalkeeper. Shea Given's probably the best keeper we've had. But I think Srnicek's always going to be my favourite, and he'll go down as a lot of people who grew up in that time watching Newcastle. Absolute, just Pavel is a Geordie T-shirt he wore when we won the First Division Championship. An absolute legend he was.
He was, wasn't he? Another word for this man as well. Obviously, it's 5 years to the day that Rafa came into the club, and 3 years, won the championship, 2 solid places in the Premier League. That quote says everything about the man. We're not a stepping stone. Everyone should be playing for Newcastle United and for the shirt and the badge. What a guy he was, Craig. And I mean, I still miss him now. I want him back. And I know it's never going to happen, but there's always that tiny little bit of hope that if the takeover happens, Rafa will be back again. Would you like to see him back with open arms if the takeover happens?
I think he's had his time and it's kind of over. Is he better than Bruce?
I don't like that, Craig. I don't like that attitude, Craig.
Yeah, I mean, as like we've said, and it's been mentioned before, I had Kevin Keegan, I had Bobby Robson, who brought something to the city and everybody loved it. And Rafa, in the 3 years that he was here, he instilled a little bit of pride again in Newcastle and in the club. And, the way it ended wasn't all that great. And you don't know what the true story is. And did he walk out? Was he not offered anything? So he left. He went to earn his millions in China. I think that's kind of put pay to that. And I think if it's a big if takeover ever happens, I think we should be looking at possibly better, bigger than somebody like Rafa. But I wouldn't.
It's hard to say bigger than Rafa, though, isn't it? Champions League winning, you won the UEFA Cup with Chelsea. It's hard to say. You won the UEFA Cup the Champions League with Liverpool as well. It's not many bigger than Rafa in my eyes, man.
Doesn't matter, it's been a while since he's achieved and all that, but I mean he's got a good record in the Premier League and in European football, and for Newcastle United to attract a manager of his name when we did in the position we're in, he was paid handsomely for it, but it does show, and yes. Say that quote, the size of Newcastle United, they're a big club and they should be not a stepping stone and looking upwards instead of the predicament we are in at the minute.
Yeah, I mean the potential of the club is the thing that attracted Rafa, and some of the rumours I heard was that obviously the club wanted to sign Joelinton and Rafa didn't. Club wanted to sign ASM, Rafa didn't. He didn't see them as players that would take the club forward and have the right attitude that they needed to wear the Newcastle shirt. Obviously, he might have been wrong about ASM. That's still a point to prove, but he was definitely right about Joelinton. If you give Rafa 110 million, what the team could be right now with the players he would have sold on, because we are holding on to Championship players still, in Gale and Richie and players like that, you would have had them out the door. It could have been a complete different season if he was still in charge, 2 years ago, instead of getting the cabbage in that we have now. Richard, what do you think of Rafa as a man, as a manager, and obviously not just as a Newcastle manager, obviously Real Madrid, Chelsea, Liverpool, Inter Milan, all those massive clubs he's managed. Would you have him at Villa?
I mean, I'm pretty happy with Dean Smith at the moment, but Rafa's track record, as you've just said there, it goes before him, and it's second to none, really. And I think as a kind of outsider looking in on Newcastle, it becomes a much better manager in a sense because of what you've got now, because in theoretically what you've dropped down to from Rafa Benitez down to Steve Bruce, and also it always seemed to me when Newcastle were playing, even when they were in the Championship, along with Aston Villa, they breezed through that Championship season, but every game from that Championship season going through into the Premier League, they always seem to have a plan. They always seem to have a set structure and like a set tactical plan for every team that they were playing against. Obviously they didn't win every game. They didn't always play attacking or attractive football all the time, but you could see what they were trying to do. And I think obviously we'll get into this more in the Steve Bruce conversation, but with Steve Bruce, you don't tend to see that plan or that structure with whoever you're playing, and that's from him being at Aston Villa as well, from personal experience of watching Steve Bruce's teams. And I think, at the very least, that's what Rafa gave you as well as everything else that he brought to the club as well.
Yeah, you give an identity, didn't he? And even when he played 5 at the back, yes, it was negative, but he also had a plan of being able to try and go forward and win games as well, playing 5 at the back. And that's where Bruce doesn't, because he just sits back and, but we'll talk about the cabbage later on, don't we? We're very, very soon, actually, to be completely honest with you. There's one thing I want to highlight as well at the moment against Newcastle. So I'm sorry, Richard, but this man, Matty Longstaff, he's not getting his chance. He got relegated to the under-23s. Is he the mole, or is his dad the mole?
I wouldn't like to say. I don't know. I mean, for me, again, watching from a distance, he was very, very good last season. I don't really understand why he's fallen so far out of favour, and he was probably the brightest spark, or arguably one of the brightest sparks in the season. And it stands to reason with Villa and any club really, when they've got a young lad coming through, a local lad coming through, and they come out and they play with a heart on the sleeve, and they're giving 110% every game, as Matty Longstaff seemed to do. It always connects with the fans much better. And for him to be linked with those clubs that he was linked with, I think it was Udinese or something like that, was he?
In Italy,
I mean, good, a good club like that. Whether that's pushed Bruce's nose out of joint a little bit, I don't know, but it's really puzzling when you look at who's playing in midfield and the energy that they seem to miss in midfield, that Matty Longstaff isn't in the side. Whether he's the mole or not, I don't know. I mean, we had Craig Hope a few weeks ago on our podcast, and he obviously doesn't get on with Steve Bruce for one reason or another, but he's actually prepared to call him out. So whoever's, I don't know if it's Matty Longstaff feeding him the stories, but I could imagine there's quite a few moles, because when you've got a dressing room that's not doing great, that's not putting out results, it could be any one of a number of people within the playing staff.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I think he's the mole or his dad is because obviously the treatment of Sean Longstaff as well, his brother, he got blamed for the Sheffield United defeat. And Bruce has got this lovely way of blaming players rather than himself. And I think he's blamed himself once this season, and that's it. And I think he said in a press conference, "The buck stops with me." It's like, that's the first time you've said that in 2 years, mate. So that's a load of crap, because you always keep on calling out players and throwing them under a bus. It's driving me mad. It really is. Craig, what do you think about them all? Sorry, go on, Richard.
No, I was just going to say it's the deflection tactics, and it's classic Steve Bruce. He did that at Aston Villa. He threw certain players under the bus. He would turn on the fans. He would say that the fans didn't accept him because he'd managed Birmingham City before, and I'm sure he'll do the same with you guys because he's managed Sunderland before. It's just classic Steve Bruce.
Yeah, he's. If we could hit him. Go on, Craig. Who do you think the mole is?
Well, like Richard said, it could be numerous players. But you've got a squad that seems to be quite disharmonious at the minute. You've got Longstaffs and Richie and Darlow and all of these kind of people that are not happy. Carroll maybe as well. You know, it's kind of, it could be anyone, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And Bruce calling all these players out, he's trying to copy Mourinho, because that's a classic Mourinho tactic as well, isn't it? Sometimes you get the best out of players and sometimes you don't. And I guess you need to know which players you need to call out are going to perform the best. And I would assume that somebody like Matty Longstaff, that he's a Newcastle supporter, he wants to perform and play and do everything he can. And he's not being given the opportunity, and he's getting shunted off to play the Mackems in a rainy Tuesday evening or whenever it was.
It was. I think it was Tuesday afternoon. I think it was. It was a 1-1 draw. But like you mentioned, calling out players every now and again does work if you're a good man manager. But Steve Bruce isn't a good man manager. He just likes throwing people under the bus and not blaming himself. And if it is Andy Carroll, can you imagine that matchup? Bruce trying to have a go at Carroll, you'd absolutely kill him.
I know where my money is.
Yeah,
exactly. Carroll reminds me of Oz in Alfredus and Pet.
Very much so.
So this is another one of Bruce's lovely quotes. I sincerely hope so. I'm never going to walk away from it. I have 100% faith in the players, and I'm convinced they have the same for me and my staff. I mean, I think that's a load of crap, if I'm completely honest with you. Steve Bruce and his lovely sayings, he drives me nuts. I just had to put that one up. So there's a bit of rumours as well going around that we're looking at signing a new player. And if I've got the right picture somewhere, that's not him. That's not him.
I'll take
Where's
Grealish.
my player gone?
Yeah,
I'd take Grealish.
I don't know if Mike Ashley will stump up the money for Jack Grealish, to be honest.
Take over, maybe, then I'll take him, definitely. But in the news today, Maffrey Bondswell, I've never heard of the lad. Apparently he plays for RB Leipzig. He's played for England in the under-23s youth level. So apparently he's ripped up his contract at RB Leipzig, and he's on a free. So that does not surprise me that we're linked with someone that's not going to cost any money. So have any of you guys heard of him?
I mean, I've not heard of him. I've had a quick look around from him, and I think he was at Forest, and one of the several young English players who've made a move over to Germany, and Leipzig's got a good record of promoting players and promising and that. I don't think he's played for Leipzig. He's been on loan in Holland, and he's had a few games in their second division. But yeah, like you say, he's free. 18, is he? 18, 19?
Something like that. Yeah.
He's played for England 18s, 17s. So you never know. I signed somebody.
Have you heard of him? Richard?
No, can't say that I had. I just like Craig there. There seems to be quite a few young English players going over to play in Germany, and they seem to like the quick fullbacks. I think there's a player called Omar Phillips or Omar Richards, I think, from Reading, who's signed a pre-contract with Bayern Munich. So they seem to be interested in the quick fullback. So he probably comes with a good pedigree, and it looks if Leeds and West Ham are interested as well, he must be quite a decent prospect, but would be someone maybe for the future. Whether Steve Bruce is the man to get the best out of young players and coach them and bring them on, then that's another matter for debate.
I'd maybe rather be going for Jamal Lewis, haven't we?
Yeah, if Marcelo Bielsa or Steve Bruce is asking, then I know where I'd be going as a young player.
Yeah, there's only one winner, isn't there? I love watching Leeds at the moment, and I'm not a big fan of Leeds, but because it used to be the only derby years back when Sunderland played down. Like they are now, it's our derby again. So yeah, they're a good side to watch at the moment. So just a quick shout out. I'm doing a free giveaway. It's basically I call it a competition, even though it's not really a competition. If you follow my channel, once I get to 500 subscribers, you have a chance of winning Alan Shearer's testimonial program, a retro Newcastle shirt, and a Peter Beardsley signed postcard. So as soon as I hit 500 subscribers, I'll draw a lucky winner, contact you, and send it to you through the post. I think it's a great prize. Got to get rid of it because it's been in a box for 7 years, and the missus won't let me put it up on my walls anywhere. So, G wears the trousers, I don't.
I might see if I've got my Alan Shearer program somewhere then.
Yeah, it's a great program as well. I've actually got a copy of his shirt as well, the testimonial shirt. There's only 25 or 50,000 printed, and I managed to get my hands on one. When I get over 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to try and get Shearer to sign it and give that away as well. So eventually, but it's going to take a long time to get to that. So let's have a little chat about the press conference today with Steve Bruce. Have both of you had a chance to watch it? I don't know if
I've seen some of the quotes. I've seen some of the quotes from him.
Let's see if I can bring some of them up. Let's have a look. What have we got here? You have to pick up enough points, and over the last 6 games, we have shown signs we are doing okay. Now, how can you say we're doing okay when we went to West Brom and played for a point? I mean, we did okay against Wolves for 60 minutes. We should have won that game, but ended up drawing 1-1. But that quote there is a sign of a man who's not watching the game we're watching. What do you think, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I had a quick look, and Newcastle and Aston Villa in the last 5 games have got the same amount of points, which isn't a lot of points, but it's picking up draws. I know we'll talk about it, and draws at the minute aren't good enough, really. We need to be getting victories. I've seen somewhere you get a couple of wins in a row, then you're flying up the table, but we haven't had that, and it's been a while since we've had a couple of decent performances together back to back.
Yeah, we really need 3 points somewhere.
Yeah, it is. But like you say, it's the form that was before our last couple of games. Like you say, we've got 2 draws, isn't fantastic, but even back Southampton, we've got a win, and then pretty much before that, it was pretty much all losses, wasn't it? For a good old fair few months. So positive sides, we're better than we were, which it just that trajectory needs to keep going up. But yeah, you got to put a positive spin on it, don't you? And I guess he's trying to look at it and say we're performing better. We're not conceding as many as we were. We're trying to get the points there, and as long as we keep getting more points than everybody else around you, that's all you need.
Is it too little too late, though, in a way? Because, I mean, Graham Jones is coming in, and we saw a different style of football when he came in. Is he the reason why we've started to perform better and pick up points? From an outsider, Rich, you obviously probably seen what happened with Jones coming in. It wasn't a Bruce signing by all means. Bruce says it was. I don't think it was. I think it was above his head. He's come in. There's been some spats on the touchline. I don't know whether they're full-on spats or whether they were just, words to each other and didn't agree with something. But as an outsider looking in, what do you make of that relationship between Bruce and Jones? Is it toxic? Has it worked, or is it going to work?
I mean, I thought when he came in and you played against Everton, I thought that was a really, really, really good performance, and it was, I think you shocked Everton a little bit, and they couldn't react, and it was almost a really good tactical performance. But then I know you had that dogged sort of result against Southampton, although before you had the player sent off, it was actually a really good performance. So there were positive signs, but you're right in what you're saying. When a coach is brought in, and Bruce was almost like, when he was interviewed, was quite surprised at it, and he was kind of trying to react in a positive way, but the body language tells it all, and you're right, it wasn't necessarily a Bruce idea. He maybe thought it was a potentially good idea when it was put at the table, but I suppose it doesn't take too long if it isn't his full idea for it to kind of unravel a bit. And that last, what was it, the Wolves game, where there was a bit of tension on the touchline with the getting the message across, and that's not what you want to see. And whether you think there's voices going on or whispers going on behind you, or someone's coming in over your shoulder and looking at every decision you're making, it doesn't lead to a harmonious management team. So yeah, in terms of the initial response, I thought it was quite positive for you guys, but then it's at risk at the moment of potentially dropping downhill.
Yeah, I mean, the Wolves game is a very good example of who was given the orders, why weren't the orders given to the players at the right time, and then there was the whole little spat. Apparently, Bruce told Jones to F off.
Yeah.
Now, personally, I don't think it was to make too much of it, because when you're having a conversation with someone and you don't agree with what they're saying, you are going to tell them to F off sometimes. So if you've got that kind of relationship, but it's the face, it's the way he looks when he tells me, and the little sly looks he gives him when Jones is giving out orders. You can see him on the touchline looking over him going, why is he saying that? Why is he doing that? He's not actually saying it, but his face is saying it. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't look good. And it looks like I think it was a great idea to bring him in. Personally, I would like to see Bruce move upstairs and see out his contract that way, and let Jones take over and give him till the end of the season and see what happens. But Mike Ashley has his own ideas, and he doesn't want to pay $4 million to get rid of Bruce after paying $6.5 million to get him from Sheffield Wednesday. So it could end up costing $10.5 million. Do you know what I mean? And the wages he's got as well. He's robbed we're blind, basically.
Yeah, I mean, to be in agreement with Craig there, with the press conference, a couple of those press conference comments, it is quite difficult. What can he say? You're in a tough position. He can't turn around and say, well, we're going to potentially get relegated, and use kind of negative language. He's got to try and talk it up a bit, and sort of get fans on side a bit, and rouse the players a bit. And to be fair, you've got a chance of getting a good result tomorrow. It's Villa have been as inconsistent this last few games as any team, so it's definitely a winnable game for you guys. So he's got to kind of talk it up a bit, but you can pick holes in it. What's that?
He never does. He never talks up the team. Every time I've seen him in a press conference, it's always, oh yeah, they're a good side. Yeah, it's going to be a tough game. Yeah, we've got to get things right on the pitch, and It's like rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
That's what I was going to say. It's a bit of a cut and paste job with Steve Bruce. You can play Steve Bruce bingo with him quite a few times.
We do. There's plenty of that on Twitter.
It's two different things, talking to the media and your press conference. And I don't think it matters what he says. Fans, whoever, the media, they've got their own opinions, and they're going to use it one way or the other, whatever he says. If he comes out all guns blazing, yeah, we're going to win, we're going to do this and all that, fans will just turn around and say, well, he's talking out of his arse again. We're not going to do that. We haven't got the opportunities. And then, like you say, Richard, if he turns around saying, oh, we're going to get relegated, it's a really tough battle, then everybody's going to get on his back anyway. So I think the whole situation with Steve Bruce and the situation that, admittedly, he's probably facilitated it himself, has gotten them into this position. And the fact that Jones has come in, has he come in on a level or has he come in above him? That's kind of knocked where he is. So yeah, they got the response against Everton, but since then it's kind of gone down a bit. And is that because the two of them don't know what the pecking order is? Is Bruce looking over his shoulder going, am I going to lose my job if X, Y, or Z happens? And Graham Jones is telling somebody to do this, and Steve Bruce said, well, I don't want them to do that. I'm the one who's going to get sacked. They're not going to sack Graham Jones, are they? So it's head on the block, and it's a tough situation for everybody to be in, and it's not a happy camp, whatever way you look at it, from staff, players anyway.
I would just like him to come out in a press conference and talk like Scotty Parker does with Fulham. He says, at the moment we're playing well, we can beat anyone. That positivity is something that I've never seen from Bruce ever. Even when we were doing well last year, I don't know how we did well, but he kept us up and kept us up safely. He never came out and talked positively about the team going to get a result. It was always the same. It was always copy and paste. It was always playing against a tough team. We've got to get things right. And even when we were on a roll, same thing. Doesn't matter who we were playing. We could have been playing Palace. He still talk the way he does about Palace as he does to Man City, which is not right. We're bigger than those clubs. He needs to talk it up a lot more. And I think he would have got a lot more respect if he did. And I think he's just dug himself into a hole that he can't get out of now. And I mean, I was one of those fans that never wanted him, to be completely honest with you. So whatever he did, he had a chance of turning me over because he says he was coming in to play attractive football and more attacking football than what Rafa did. And he didn't. It never materialised. And that from that point, he was never going to get it back in my eyes. So, yeah, just get rid of him.
Get rid of everyone.
You what? Sorry, pal?
I think they need to get rid of everybody from the top down to the bottom. I think that's the only way.
You're right. I mean, without getting rid of Ashley, when we're going to get another Bruce on, we're somewhere along the line. So here's another one as well. We had two wonderful opportunities in the first 10 minutes. We were a bit unfortunate on both. One was a great bit of defending. Hopefully we'll get in that position tomorrow, make the right decisions, take our chances and win the match. So again, hopefully we'll get those chances. Hopefully we'll get into those positions. It's not... We've been on the training ground working on getting into these positions, and we're going to take our chances. Do you see the different mindset in how that sounds to what he said? And I mean, I can only remember one good chance in the first 15 minutes against West Brom, and that was when Joe Linton burst through and should have took the shot and crossed instead. So to me, again, he's talking out of his backside, guys. What do you think?
Had one that long after as well. Fraser had a similar opportunity, wasn't it? Like he couldn't beat the first kind of defender. But they were probably the only two chances I had in the whole game.
Yeah, exactly. Then the second half started and it just got worse. We just sat back and then he lost the game. Did you watch the game, Richard? It was a proper board draw for the neutrals.
Yeah, I watched most of it. I think I watched sort of towards the end of the first half and all of the second half, and it wasn't a classic by any means. And it looked like two teams at the bottom of the league just scrapping through anything they could. And yeah, to be fair, West Brom probably finished the stronger and could have nicked it. But I think in terms of his comments there, you're right in what you're saying. You want to hear like what they've been doing on the training ground to rectify it. Saying the strikers have been working on the finishing, or saying we've been working on moves to kind of get around Villa and work. We've watched them and see how they're playing. You want to see kind of that there's been some work done on the training ground, because when you're saying things like hopefully we can do this and hopefully we can do that, you're kind of setting yourself up for trying to nick something tomorrow. Trying to sit back and nick something and hopefully you get something, and that's the kind of language. And that was the way that you guys played against Villa at Villa Park. And we're a tough team to break down. We've got a lot of clean sheets, so I might be dead wrong, and Newcastle might fly out the traps and come at us. But when you're using language like that, it's setting it up for, we're gonna sit back and hopefully we'll pick something up. We'll get a set piece, or we'll do something where, it'll bounce off someone and we'll get a chance.
Yeah. What about you, Craig? What do you think of that part of the press conference? What you said there?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with kind of what's been said there. That that you can frame whatever you want to say, whichever manner you want it to appear. So you're going into it with your negative connotations of hopefully and these kind of things. And his assessment of last week was probably correct with what he's saying about the chances. But is it like you're saying? Is it any difficult to explain? Go positive. This is what we want to do, and want to create the chances and put them away instead of hopefully and that. But that's his character, isn't it? The way he's probably been like that when he was at Villa. That he was always not negative. I don't think it's a negative way. That it's kind of just mundane, kind of run of the mill what he's trying to say. Without, it's not Scott Parker. He's not ebullient. He's not actively going for attacking or creating chances or being positive. He's possibly just trying to be realistic and say what hopes is going to happen without giving away all his tactical secrets that he's got planned for Friday night.
I can imagine what is written on Steve Bruce's tactical board: score more than the opposition. That's about as good as it gets for him. We've got one more quote from
Do not concede.
Yeah, do not concede. Yeah. So there's a bit of an injury update for our players. So everything is going well with Almiron, St-Maximin and Wilson. Almiron is making particularly good progress, which is good news. The international break may just do us a favour, so let's hope we can get them in and respond in the way they are. So that's good news for obviously Newcastle fans after the international break, because we've got a horrible run of fixtures coming up. And we need those free players flying. I believe Mantua and Fernandez are back in the squad for tomorrow night, which is great news because Crap, as a lot of people like to call him, we need Mantua back at right back because it is shocking at the moment. It really is. And then, with those injury crises, here's a stat that will make you at Villa very, very happy. Combined games, 54 matches between Carroll, Gale and Joelinton, and a combined target of 5 goals. 5 goals, 40 million. He was rated at 20 million, Gale. Andy Carroll, I think he's past it now, to be completely honest with you. But
yeah,
Richard, looking at those stats, you must be thinking, geez, that's another clean sheet for us tomorrow night.
You'd like to think so. I mean, Dwight Gale has got a habit of scoring against Aston Villa. So he is a dangerous player for us, against us. I think he scored last season in the game at St James's. It was 1-1. He scored against Villa for West Bromwich Albion when he was on loan there. So he's a dangerous player to come up against. But with Andy Carroll, I think you're right there. And Joelinton, I don't know what it is. He just doesn't seem to. He just doesn't seem to fit in anywhere. Whether he's played down the right, whether he's played through the middle, there seems like there's a player in there somewhere, but he just doesn't seem to be coming out. And that's where I've talked about Bruce. Players need to be coached, and unfortunately, he's not got the right manager with him to bring out the best in him. But when you played us a few weeks back, it just seemed to be sort of long, hopeful balls up front, and to be honest, that's sort of meat and drink to Ezri Konsa and Tyrone Mings at the back. So if they played those similar tactics, I can't see too much threatening us, to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of echo that, to be honest with you. It's a shame. And Gale, unfortunately, is, like you say, his level is the Championship. For me, he is our second best striker at the club, and he's fallen out with Brusso, so I can't see him starting. I can see, for some reason, probably playing Willock as a false 9 again. He likes his false numbers. Remember, he played 2 false 10s against someone. God knows what that was all about. Craig, what do you think of those stats? Looking at that, 3 of our strikers, You know, they're all backup strikers. Wilson's got 10 goals and 5 assists this season. Yeah, what a miss he is.
Yeah, he's a massive miss. I mean, like you're saying, Joelinton, he keeps getting the odd opportunity, and you just think, just hit it. Like Wolves, right at the end where he got saved on the line. He's trying to place it in the corner. There was one against West Brom as well, I think, and he just keeps looking as though he's mishitting it. He's scuffing opportunities. If that was Wilson clean through when he passed it, he would have just smashed it in the top corner. Whereas Joelinton hasn't got the confidence, whether he's trying to create something, just stick your boot through it. And I think as a fan, you'd be more happy if he tried that.
Yeah,
just lace it and give it a just try, but his kind of finishing seems a bit lackluster. And like you say, he's a big lad, but he's got no strength or like Carroll. You could stick up front and everything would hit him and it'll stick. I don't think Joelinton's much different size-wise to him, but you could never play that kind of. He's not a target man for the size he is. Too big for. He's played on the wing for Hoffenheim, didn't he? Kind of coming in off the left, and Bruce has tried him to do that, and he doesn't seem to be able to perform that way. So I'm surprised they've scored 5 goals between them, to be perfectly honest. Carroll's not had a sniff at all. No, really, Gale's not really either. But they haven't to. The fact that Wilson's out, somebody is having to step up and put in. And if Maximin or Almiron was still there, you'd kind of think, okay, well, at least that's a burst of energy, a bit of trickery, a bit of something that a Gale or a Joelinton might get on the end of something that they can perform, they can do. But you don't see Joelinton, Carroll or Gale getting on the end of anything, especially without the creativity that Maximin and Almiron possibly have and the ability that they've got. So it's kind of, and Clark
completely agree with you.
Season,
yeah, I mean, when Joelinton ran through, I was watching it at work, and I was literally shouting and screaming at the TV. Where's that pace come from? Hit it, man, hit it! Yeah. And I said on one of the shows, on the reaction show, I said, play the percentages, because it was a very Sam Allardyce quote: is you should be shooting across goal, because if he doesn't hit it too well, the keeper's going to palm it out, and then Fraser's got to tap in. And they're the kind of percentages that you should be playing for. If Alan Shearer burst through like that down on goal, there's no way he was going to think about crossing the ball. The only player that comes to mind that would cross it would be Peter Beardsley, and he is absolutely brilliant enough to find the player in the box, not hit the defender. I mean, put a bit of height on it, man, if you're going to cross it. It was absolutely shocking. So before we move on to some comments, I didn't get to see Dean Smith's press conference today, so I'm hoping Richard's going to fill us in on that one. Do you want to highlight any injury concerns for the game? I know Grealish is out, which is great for us. But is there any? I saw a tweet yesterday saying that Traore was possible. He wasn't in training, and I think there was Watkins didn't train as well yesterday. So do you want to give us an update on that? And hopefully it's a good one for the Toon Army rather than for Villa.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of injury news, I think Traore and Watkins were just rested, unfortunately for you guys, from a couple of days extra days off. Traore did come off in as a precaution in the last game, but he wasn't mentioned today as being anything an issue. The same with Watkins. In terms of, you've said Grealish, he won't be playing, and as I suspected and most Villa fans suspected, he probably won't make it until after the international break. But we had Matty Cash, who was injured as well, and Anwar El Ghazi, and they're actually fit enough to be in the squad. So I would imagine Cash coming in for El Mohammadi, which has been a big miss as well. Matty Cash has been fantastic this season for Villa. Signed him from Nottingham Forest in pre-season, and he's took to the Premier League brilliantly. And El Ghazi has been on really good form generally since December. So he's a bit of a bright spark when Grealish isn't playing. He can set up a goal or he can score. So it'd be good to have him fighting for a place. But other than that, I don't think there's any other injury concerns. I think we've got a fairly fully fit squad, apart from the main man.
That makes me sad. I was jumping around yesterday when I saw the news that they weren't in training. I was thinking, oh my God, this is our best chance of 3 points. There's no way Villa can come to St James's Park and be missing those 3 players. Not a chance that they're going to get anything. And now you come up with that, I'm like, oh God, just get a point.
Well, to be honest, he does play his cards close to his chest, Dean Smith. So he wasn't asked about those players. So I'm assuming that they're fit enough to be in the squad. But certainly Cash and El Ghazi are fit enough to be asked, because he specifically mentioned those players. So yeah, I think unfortunately, I think Watkins will be starting up top.
Damn it. I like Ollie Watkins. When we were linked with him and we got Wilson instead, I thought we were still going to go and get Ollie as well. Obviously, Mike Ashley doesn't think that way. He thought that having championship strikers on the bench is going to be enough. It's obviously proven very wrong, and Watkins has took to the Premier League very well, scored enough goals for you. Remember him scoring? It was a couple against Liverpool, wasn't it, when you absolutely thrashed them at Villa Park?
He got a hat trick. Yeah, he got a hat trick.
So, it's not bad for his first season, is it?
Yeah, he scored against Newcastle as well. Yeah, he did.
There you are. It's a good first season in the Premier League from coming out of the Championship and doing what he's doing. So, all the best to the kid. So before we move on to our lineups, which is the next one, there's quite a few comments just to quickly go through. David says, hi David. Same to Paul as well. Evelyn Thomas, these are regulars who watch the show. What's Paul saying? 2-1 to the lads. Faz, he's an actual Villa fan from Newcastle as well, so he's watching in. Evening, Faz. Even though from Dave as well. No, I haven't cut my hair, Paul. I'm just like wearing a hat. I'm cold in my kitchen. Barry's not John's hat. John's a regular on one of our shows, and he always wears a hat as well. So I'm copying John's style for a change. Only plan Bruce has got his cabbages in his back garden. I bet he doesn't even get that right. I bet he hasn't even got uniform lines when he's in his own garden. I bet it's all over the shop. Bruce insists he has no plans about putting the England and the 20 international Matty Longstaff back into the side. He simply has to be patient. I did see the news about that today, saying that he's got a big future, is what he said. And the kid's got a future now. He should be playing. He scored 2 goals against Man United. He scored 1 at St James's Park and scored the winner for Bruce. He went to Old Trafford and scored, even though we got beat. He's got fresh legs, like you mentioned, Richie. He can get around the pitch like Shelvey can't. I mean, I love Shelvey because he can pass the ball and he's got great vision, but we're starting to look very slow in that midfield. So you must be happy seeing the likes of these young lads on the bench, really.
What, for Villa?
Yeah, so looking at the Newcastle side, looking at how desperate we are in midfield with Hendrick, with Shelvey, there's no pace there. You must be thinking, God, this is what we want to see.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. The game these days is about pace and having legs in midfield. And if you are playing the likes of Jeff Hendrick, Isaac Hayden, who I don't think is a bad player at all, and John Joe Shelvey, all decent players in their own right, but they're not going to get about the pitch quick enough. When we go onto the starting lineups, when you're coming up against John McGinn or Nakamba and people like that, who Smith has looked at our midfield, and we were getting sometimes overrun last season. He's rectified that with putting players in who can get about the pitch quicker. Yeah. So when the likes of Longstaff are on the bench and other younger players who can get about the pitch, it just puzzles me, and I imagine it's the same for you guys.
Yeah, Craigie, do you echo that?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's kind of settled on what he likes in his midfield, hasn't he? And he doesn't seem to really mix it up a bit. And like we've mentioned, Hayden, Shelvey, Hendrick, they haven't got that legs to get around. Whereas both the Longstaffs kind of have a bit of the younger. They've got a bit of more energy and a bit of drive to go forward and take the take the game to the opposition, which, like you say, I mean, Shelvey on his day he can pass a ball as good as anybody and pick anybody out, and that's the kind of player who you would like on your team, but you would like them to be able to do a bit of running as well.
Yeah, so, I mean, I remember a quote that came out of the Leeds game. Apparently, Shelvey said to a couple of Leeds players, "Will you just stand still?" That just tells you everything, doesn't it? So, Matty the Mole Longstaff, that's catching on now. Thanks, Paul. Craig, apparently you sound a bit muffled. It is a little bit, but I can still understand you, thank God. So, Richard, can you understand them? Are you hearing them all right?
Yeah. I mean, the accent maybe, but I'm used to it. I'm used to it now, living up here for a few years. Yeah.
Love it. Bruce the Tosspot. Well, yeah. Bruce is totally deranged. Yep, I agree. Is Paul the new John Joe Shelvey? Oh. It's a good one. Lads, do you think Jones could be the Mole? Well, he could be, couldn't he? Jones has obviously come in, probably wants the job full time. If he can kick Bruce when he's down and take the job full time, he could be the Mole, but you would hope he's not. I mean, a lot of people are saying Steve Bruce is the Mole, don't they? What's that, Craig?
I'm saying Jones comes in, starts spreading that. It's a bit Machiavellian, isn't it? It's a bit kind of, underhanded. It's
definitely. David's a regular. Evening, David. Nice to see you watching. Hello, Craig. Oh, is that your dad or is that your uncle?
Yeah, that's my dad.
Bruce does not like Jones around. I completely echo your dad there. You can give him a fist pump from me. Training ground. Did the team train this week? That's a very good question. There's been a lot of news recently that Steve Bruce is only training the players twice a week, and we're coming into games where we're desperate for points. You had Rafa had them in nearly every day training. Why is he doing this? Can you see? Did that happen at Villa, Richard?
Well, there's the thing that Dean Smith's been doing. I know he gave the players a couple of days off this week because they had 3 matches in a week last week. But what Smith has been doing is having the training sessions later. He's been putting the sessions to like midday because he says we're dealing with younger players now who like to play on Xboxes and PlayStations, and they're not going to bed till sort of 1-2 a.m. So he's, rather than having 10 a.m. training, he's having 12 midday training, and he feels like he can get more out of them. I think Bruce, in terms of like the days off, I think he's probably in a bit of a tough situation because of the fixture list and the fixture congestion. And a lot of the time the players are just either topping up or just playing games. I think where it's an issue is the players that are in the first team traveling squad, but then aren't getting any minutes. And then you're asking them to come into the side or to come on for 20 minutes, and they've not had any training because they're on the same schedule as the lads who've been playing as the first 11. So I guess that's where that balance is difficult to manage, because you've got to give enough minutes to those players so they're ready to come on and play at any time.
Yeah. Well, what's your thoughts on it, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, you hear people talking even most seasons, once you get towards the back end of the season, that the games are coming thick and fast and everybody's tired, and this season's been a little bit different with everything that's going on, and you can almost understand how, as Richard said, you kind of topping up and you don't need the full intensity of physical training. A day off, a couple of days off, but you can still bring people in and take some free kicks, take some corners, work tactics, work around that kind of thing, instead of just letting everybody, I'd say, go to the Metro Centre, but can't do that either.
Well, yeah, I mean, the only thing the players can do is play on Xboxes and PlayStations these days, or they have these parties and get nailed for it. So, but I mean, for me personally, when you're in a relegation battle like we are, I don't mind them having days off. It's the amount of days off he's given them. If you're not going to train them, bring them in and watch videos, like you said, talk tactics, work out what's going wrong. If we can't finish, like we can't finish a dinner at the moment, get those strikers out there taking penalties, shooting inside the box, learning to finish again. It just seems to me he's given them far too much time off, and they're not really learning from mistakes. And in that second half against West Brom, they looked legged, they looked knackered, and that's having all these days off. I mean, these are meant to be finely tuned athletes. They need to train to keep that level of fitness up, don't they? So I don't know. It's a hard balancing act. Don't get me wrong, and it's a difficult one with the injuries we've got. But I still think he's missing a trick. I really do.
Well, that could be a reason why the players are getting injured. They're not conditioned enough. They're not fit enough. I mean, it was a stage at Villa that he had criticisms of. You know, he'd get experienced pros in to get results and dig out results in the Championship. But whenever we came up against a team that was quick, you know, like Fulham were at that time, and even Dean Smith's Brentford, who when he was manager of Brentford, they always used to run rings around Villa every time they played against us, and we just looked leggy and looked slow. So there must be some sort of correlation there with what Bruce does and how he manages the training program for his players.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think there's something in this. I think he's just a dinosaur now, and he needs to not be in football anymore. He should be a pundit, and even then, he'll still have the wrong views. So. Go on, guys. What's your favourite club biscuit? Mine was always orange or mint.
Orange is pretty good.
Yeah,
like
I'm orange. Definitely orange all the way.
Bit of a strange question for a football show, but there you go. Like your show, thanks, David. I don't know whether he's saying he liked the show, but he also agrees with what we're saying. Cannot understand Bruce. Get him away from Jones. He has no brains. You're absolutely right. Again, give your dad another fist pump, Craig. You don't give the players off when you see how little they do in a match. Yeah, exactly. This is what I mean. They're not shown enough, so get them in on the training pitch and get them to hone their skills again. David, what makes you say Jones has brains? Well, for me, the Everton game, that was, for me, a blueprint of Jones's old tactics when he was manager of Luton, playing 4-3-3, and also being under Martinez as a number 2. Martinez used to love a 4-3-3 as well with Belgium, with Everton. So that's where I think this new formation and new lease of life has come from. So again, it could be completely wrong, but that's the way I see it. I don't know about you guys. Do you see it that way, or do you think Bruce has actually dropped some tactics for a change?
I think Jones got quite a bit of, for me, too much credit for the Everton, because he'd only been there 2 days and had one training session. So I don't know how much he can actually do in that kind of time. But like you say, since he has come in, our form has gone from mediocre to, well, terrible to mediocre. So something's happened, and whether it's a coincidence that is whatever he's done and come in and just given the team a boost, or is this just luck, or has Bruce learned something from him, or is it just a case of, you know, it's hard to notice from the outside who's actually making these decisions and what is actually being done. But like you say, up until Jones came, we've had 2 months were atrocious. He has come in, and does seem to be a bit of a turnaround in performance and in the points as well. So give him some credit. Give everybody there who's made a difference a bit of credit, or, you know. So, and people don't like Bruce, so they're going to take it away from Steve Bruce and give it all to Jones anyway. So
yeah. Bruce had 18 months in charge. Things are so different since Jones came in. That's what I echo, to be honest with you. What about you, Richard? Do you think Jones has made a difference to the Newcastle brand of football, or do you just think it's luck?
No, I think you can see there's more of a plan there. You know, I think there has been a slight upturn in results. I think, like I said, that there's more of a plan there, because even in some of the defeats, you know, you've seen that there's been more structure. There's been sort of a less chance of sort of collapsing. You know, against Leeds, he still looked good. Even the games against United and Chelsea, there was still some form of structure. United and Chelsea, was still some form of structure there about how you were playing, and you can see Jones giving instructions from the sidelines, telling players where to go. You know, and keeping players on their toes, and also when you do bring someone in, there's always a change in dynamic. So regardless of whether whether Bruce likes it or not, there's going to be some sort of change there. There's going to be something, whether it keeps the coaching staff on their toes a little bit, whether it's a few new ideas, there's going to be a bit of a reaction. I guess the proof of the pudding will be the next sort of 7-8 games, and then see how it goes.
Yeah, I agree with that. So let's move on to our starting 11s. I'll just move you around the screen a little bit to get rid of my ugly mug, and we can still see you two. So do you want to talk me? We'll go for Villa first, of course, with you being the visitors. Talk us through your team and just tell us about any dangers. Obviously, we kind of know Ollie Watkins is going to be the big one, but and give us an insight on how Villa are going to play, please.
Yeah, so there should be a slight change at right back there. It'll probably be back to the back five that we've had for most of the season, with Martinez in goal, who's been just tremendous signing for us. I couldn't have asked for a better goalkeeper, to be fair, and he's probably almost up there with one of the best goalkeepers that Villa have ever had. He's 13 clean sheets already this season, and the difference that he's made to us has just been incredible. Matty Cash at right back, who has took to the Premier League really well, but El Mohammadi, if he starts, is a decent backup, but someone you could probably get at, being as though I think he's 30, 33, 34 now. Mings and Konsa at centre half, brilliant partnership. Konsa's probably been up there with one of the players of the season, on the verge of an England international call up at the moment, and just a classy defender. And we all know a lot about Tyrone Mings. What he seems to have done the last sort of 7 or 8 games is kind of cut out those silly mistakes he was making, where he'd maybe spend a little bit too much long on the ball, or try and do a few Cruyff turns and things like that. But he just seems to be a lot more no nonsense at the minute. And then left back Matty Targett, who again has been really consistent this season. Linked up really well with Grealish when Grealish was in the side, and again he's on the radar for England squads at the moment. I don't think he'll quite have enough to get in, because I think Luke Shaw's doing very well at the moment for United. But our whole back five has been tremendous. So that'll that's a really solid. And then my midfield, I've gone for Marvelous Nakamba, who I think played in the last game against you guys very, very quick across the pitch, puts his foot in, and just gives it nice and simply. But what he allows me to happen is John McGinn to play more of his natural game and get about the pitch and attack a bit more, where sometimes if Douglas Luiz is playing or someone else is in the midfield alongside McGinn has to stay back, and it's not his natural game. So if Nakamba plays, McGinn could be one of those danger players against you guys, because he makes late runs into the box. So that would be good to see from our point of view. I've got Ross Barkley in there just behind Watkins, because I think it's about time Barkley turned up. He came at the start of the season on loan from Chelsea, and started like a house on fire, scored against Liverpool, scored against Leicester, but then got injured and he just hasn't been the same player. So we need him to really turn up, and he's got the capability and the ability to be a real danger to you guys. So if he gets to start, I hope he performs. And then out wide we've got Bertrand Traore and Anwar El Ghazi, who can excite and frustrate in equal measure. Both similar to like a Saint Maximin, I suppose, in terms of that, but they've both contribute with goals. I think El Ghazi's got 7 goals this season. I think Traore's got 5 or 6. So again, can be that difference between drawing a game 1-1. They could pop up with a late winner, or 0-0. It's in a game, and one of them pops up with a finish. So they're key players for us. And then, as you've mentioned, Ollie Watkins up front, who's just been excellent this season. Works his socks off. He's threatening behind. He can hold the ball up. He can finish. I think sometimes he probably does too much work, if I'm being honest, and sometimes he's not necessarily in the best positions, and he needs to be a little bit more selfish. But has been an excellent signing this season. So yeah, we've got options off the bench as well, but that's what I think will start tomorrow.
Awesome. It's great insight for us, Geordies, to listen to a Villa fan talking about their lineup, and it gives us an idea of how you're going to play. So we're a little bit worried now, if I'm completely honest with you. One question I do want to ask you is, obviously, Ollie Watkins has been amazing since he's coming from the Championship, but how gutted were you missing out on Wilson, and how not gutted you are now looking at how, Watkins has performed?
To be honest, I would have liked, I think you mentioned it at the start where, you guys were interested in both and would have liked both. And I think Villa fans were exactly the same. Smith clearly wanted Ollie Watkins and got his man, but I still feel like we were left short up front. And it's only through kind of luck, if you like, that Watkins is the type of player that he is in terms of his work rate, but also his durability because he hasn't got injured. And we've got, I mean, our backup striker is Keenan Davis and he's only a young player and he's not at the moment big good enough for the Premier League. And Wesley, who was the big signing last season, but he was out with a broken leg and he's only just come back to training now. So I was pretty disappointed, to be honest, when you got Wilson and we didn't, because he's a very, very good player and he's a ready-made player. I guess it was just a case of would he be patient enough to sit on the bench, or he wants to be a number one striker. Ollie Watkins wanted to be a number one striker, so someone's nose is going to get pushed out of joint because we don't play with two strikers up front. So I would have been happy with Wilson, but I'm equally as happy with Watkins, and I think probably as I say, Wilson's a very, very good player, but I think in terms of development of where a player can move up to and where he can go, I think we've probably got slightly the better end of the deal with getting Watkins.
Yeah, the age does obviously on Watkins' side, where Wilson's sort of in his prime now, isn't he? I think if you got both of them like we got both of them, we would probably start with Wilson and Watkins would learn his trade from the bench, wouldn't he? So I think for him, it's a good move that we got Wilson and he went to you guys and he's flourished, really, hasn't he? So I say we wish him well, because it's nice watching people bang goals in. That's what the game's about, not watching boring draws.
Well, and you want to see players come up from the Championship and do well, don't you? There's a lot of talent in the Championship, and as you say, when players are coming for similar prices or for less money from abroad and not doing quite as well, that there's good players in the Championship. I mean, I have a laugh with my mates about Adam Armstrong, who's banging in goals in the Championship at the minute, and I think he could do a job at a Premier League club. There's lots of players in the Championship that are good, and you sometimes wish that Premier League teams would take a chance on them.
Yeah, I was
going to say about taking the chance on English players. I think now with what's happening with the rules around Brexit and the players there, I think it could be more likely that clubs are going to start looking at the Championship. Players like Adam Armstrong and others, and Ivan Toney as well. Again, look, both of them used to play for it.
They did. Yeah.
I was never a fan of Armstrong.
No.
I think his level's the Championship. I know he's banging them in, but I just don't see him as an out-and-out striker. I watched him against Sunderland and he burst through one goal. And all he had to do was square it. And I think it was Shola who had an open net. And he took a weak shot on, and I just thought, you're not going to be good enough for the Premier League if you're doing things like that, especially in a derby. And he was trying to get the glory rather than getting the team the win. And that kind of put a bit of a dark cloud over him for me. He might prove me wrong, and I think West Ham were interested in trying to sign him.
Yeah.
So good luck to the lad if he does make it. But I think Ivan Toney is the one that we shouldn't have let go. I think he should have had more time to develop, and I think he'll make a great striker in the Premier League in future times. Hopefully for Brentford, because I would like to see them come up. I'm a big fan of Thomas Frank, and I would like to see him as our manager, but I can't see it happening under Ashley. So it's such a horrible time. Go on, Craig. Let's go through your 11. Let's depress ourselves.
Yeah, I mean it's not a great lot different to what it was last week. I think obviously Dubravka's now firmly back in as number one. Don't think he's done anything wrong. Like you say, I know Richard was talking about Martinez and how, what a fantastic season he has. I think people question him. He's leaving Arsenal. What's he leaving Arsenal to go to Villa for? But totally justified, made the right decision there, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, De Bradford's a good goalkeeper. He's going to give you points. I've gone for, we mentioned Krafth, as Barry was saying. Take him out. Manquillo's back. I think Manquillo and Fernandes are both fit, but I don't think you can throw both of them in undercooked in the Premier League. Yeah. So I think I would start with one of them and Krafth's out so Manquillo can come in. Because Lascelles and Clark have performed reasonably well. They've got a good partnership going on. There's no reason to swap it out and bring somebody else in. So I'd keep Lascelles and Clark solid at the back.
Yeah.
I think obviously we played Dummett at left back on Sunday. I think the attacking lineup of Aston Villa is a bit more pacey than West Brom's. And I think Lewis has got a lot more pace than Dummett. Defensively, he might not be as good, but I think to match El Ghazi or the other Traore on the other wing, you know, to match them up, I think you need a bit more pace. And Lewis has got that, and you give you a bit of going forward as well. I mean, Dummett puts a shift in every time he plays. I'll rate Dummett. I think he's like he's a poor man Stephen Taylor almost, isn't he? He performs absolutely all the time, but he's never going to set the world alight. But he's just a good, solid, tries his best. Newcastle star. So again, the midfield, I don't think I've changed the rest. I very much doubt that this is the lineup that Steve Bruce is going to go for. Obviously, there's no Joe Linton in the team, so it is blatantly wrong. But I think he did talk about Willock playing a bit further forward and getting a bit more in the attacking third.
Yeah, he did that against West Brom, didn't he?
Yeah, so I think, again, being at home, I think we need to take the game to Aston Villa. And we've got nobody in there who's going to run the game, really, who's going to get a hold of it. You know, maybe the Longstaffs could have done that, but they're not in his plans at the minute for starting 11. So again, we talked about the immobility in that midfield 3 or 2 or whatever it is in there. But, you know, I think as well with that lineup, I think there's a bit of flexibility. So, I mean, I've got that down as a 4-2-3-1, but I think without much shimming it about, and I think Bruce is liking his 4-3-1-2, isn't he? So you can kind of drop Willock back and you can get forward, and Fraser and or Murphy could play up top with one of them with somebody sitting in behind. I think it's got a bit of flexibility within the lineup, but you know, you don't know who's going to play him. You're missing one of your stars, Grealish, who's like the big miss for yourselves, but I mean, we're missing our 3 best players, and anybody who's missing your 3 best players is going to struggle. You can bring players in, but they're not going to be like-for-like changes, and you're going to have to change tactics because they're going to work around. But I think we did see some positives on Sunday, not a great deal, but like you said, they had a few opportunities, and defensively, I think they were reasonably solid. West Brom obviously aren't as attacking and haven't got the players who as good as Aston Villa. I think Aston Villa are a better team, and they're quite a solid team as well. And I don't think, forgive me if I'm wrong, but there's no standouts apart from Grealish that you put your hat on and go, this guy's going to create the difference and make it. So they're just a good, solid team. That
I would say Barkley, to be fair, if he turns up.
He could, yeah. But I mean, the last few games without Grealish has been based around that kind of team unit and getting an early goal and then sort of defending from there and trying to pick off teams on the break. But in terms of your starting lineup there, I think that's probably got the best chance, if you like, with playing the likes of Willock, Gale and Fraser, because they're quick and you can get it. If there is a slight weakness with Villa there, it is getting in behind them or down the sides of them with quick passing or quick players. If you're putting balls into the box or hoofing balls forward, then like I say, Konsa and Mings are pretty good in the air. They're just good, and Martinez is excellent at claiming crosses. But where we have kind of suffered sometimes is that quick play and those quick nippy players down the sides.
I mean, that's very close to what I would go for. I would personally take Murphy out and put Anderson in. I want to see the young lad come in. ASM really rates him as well. You know, he's a player that when he came on against Arsenal in the FA Cup, I thought he was excellent. I just think he deserves his chance. But to throw the spanner in the works, looking at that team and what would actually happen, you can take Lewis out and put Dummett back in because Dummett played well. And Bruce is the kind of person who rewards players who play well. Take Murphy out and put Hendrick there, and then take Gale out and put Joe Linton there, and then move Joe Linton behind where Willock is, and that's probably the starting 11 we'll have on Friday, which, thinking about that, Richard, you'd be thinking, well, that's going to be a lot easier for us to defend because they've got no pace.
Yeah.
It's horrible to think about, but you know, that's the team we all want to see. There's lots of fans on Twitter have tweeted out almost the same team, Craig, and it makes me sick thinking about the fact that that team won't happen. And, you know, we'll have to play Bruce ball again, unfortunately. A few more comments before we move on to the last little section, because normally it's about an hour and 15 minutes for this show. I normally say an hour, but we always run over. So let's have a look at this. If you look at SB's previous, he says the same thing. Yeah, we mentioned that, didn't we? He just keeps on rinsing and repeating. Totally agree, David. Paul, missed out clubs, but you know what I mean. No progress at all. Yep. Again, he agrees. They love having the chat with each other in the private thing. It's great. David, do you think Bruce doesn't like the Longstaffs? So again, they're talking to each other. We'll leave that one alone. I think the Longstaffs have fallen out with the Cabbage. Yes, they have. And the final one is, I think he is totally red and doesn't want any brothers unless their name is Greenhoff or Neville. I'm guessing they're Man United led. Well, I know Neville's are. I don't know about Greenhoff, but there you are. But yeah. So there's one more picture, and again, I'm bringing you in for this, Rich, because I think it's a great picture there. And this is a Steve Bruce quote again. Well, they've done remarkably well in the last couple of years, in particular since I left. Need you say any more about Steve Bruce when he says something like that? You've got a dinosaur on the left, you've got a younger man on the right in Dean Smith who plays attractive football. You know, he's more up to date with the game. Does that surprise you one bit? And how happy are you, Rich, seeing Steve Bruce in the Newcastle dugout and completely away from your club now?
Yeah, I mean, it made me laugh because I thought that quote was going to come earlier on in the conversation, because that's the one that I saw, and it tickled me a bit. Yeah. I don't know if he particularly meant it exactly like that, but it does it does make you laugh, you know, like, you know, Smith goes on a 10-game winning run as soon as, because I think Bruce was saying at the time before he was leaving Villa, he was like, who are Villa going to get in to do any better than me? That was kind of the chat that Bruce was coming out with. And then Dean Smith comes in, and all of a sudden we go on a 10-game winning run, get promoted. Then we just about survived last season, and now we're sitting in 9th place. So yeah, I am so glad that he's not our manager anymore. I don't think we'd have been anywhere near where we are at the moment. But to say, I can't say I'm glad that he's with you guys, because as I said before, you know, I live up here and I've got an affection for Newcastle. So I've said this a few times, you know, there's almost like that sort of fake rivalry, if you like, between Aston Villa and Newcastle from the, you know, a few years back with the old relegation seasons and stuff. It's kind of disappeared now, because we almost have that sort of kindred spirit where we've both been through we've both experienced Steve Bruce as manager, and like all the quotes that he comes out with, the way that he plays, the way that he blames the players, the way that he gets his friends on the media to blame the fans. It's all exactly the same as what Villa fans went through, and we just totally empathise with the way that you guys are feeling at the moment.
Thanks. We appreciate that. we need support from other areas. It's great to hear of other teams who are being managed by Bruce that they hate him as much as we do. So yeah, come Craig.
I'd say there's light at the end of the tunnel. Then once we get rid of Bruce and get somebody else in, we can end up
get Dean Smith in from Villa.
Now you can keep your hands off the Dean Smith, but yeah, that's the only cloud, isn't it? That you can't, you potentially can't get any worse than Steve Bruce. So it's only up from there when he inevitably does leave.
you're completely right. So 2 more questions before we go, guys. I'm sorry to keep you so long, but we've got to do it. Score predictions. John, what are you going for? Sorry, John. Richard, what are you going for? I had John on last time and I got stuck in my head.
I've said this on a couple of like podcasts that I've done, and I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to say 2-0 Villa.
Wow.
I think
doesn't surprise me.
I think it's going to be a fairly early goal, and then I think we'll kind of soak it up and maybe catch one on the break, second half, and in similar vein to the game at Villa Park. Especially with the players that you've got out, I can't see there being too much threat against us.
Yeah. I think a lot of people will agree with you on that one. Craig, what about yourself?
Well, for the sake of sounding like a broken record for the third time and going with a 1-1 draw again, but again, we've mentioned it all the time that this part of the season we do not want to be losing games. Yes, you want to be winning, but you don't want to be losing. So the table, Villa are 9th, they're 13 points ahead of us. To get a point, looking at it like that, isn't a bad result. In the circumstances, it is a bad result. So you want to be positive, and 1-0. I'm gonna stick my neck on the line and say it's going to be 1-0 to Newcastle. And I don't know who's going to score. I don't know. Own goal will score. That's probably the best time to get.
Have you been watching my podcast on other shows, Craig? Because you've literally said exactly what I'd say. I've said my head says 1-1, my heart says 1-0, and again, don't know who's going to score it unless it's an own goal or a defender. Because I remember last season our defenders scored about 8 goals between them, didn't they? Which helped us stay up.
Yeah, that really good with Clark and
Lejeune, Clark, Shaw, they all banged in a couple of goals each. So I think they were our second top scorer when you put all the goals together. That's how bad we were. But I think 1-1, but I'm hoping 1-0. I really am. I can't see Villa winning because I think you are on the beach sort of thing. You're safe. You haven't got Grealish. I think he's a massive miss. I really do. I rate him so highly now. Needs to cut out his diving, of course. Every time my son plays football in the backyard and he falls over the ball, I'm like, stop doing a Grealish, get up, man. That's always going to stick now with him, I'm afraid.
It is. We won't mind if he does it in the Euros final and gets us a penalty to win, though, will we?
Yeah, but then VAR rule it out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Saying that, Foden went down in the ridiculous tackle yesterday, and they didn't give it. That was a shocker in the Champions League. I don't know if you saw it.
Oh, I did. He didn't even go down, did he? He tried to stay on his feet, and that then makes players think, well, if I am going to get contact and they're going to see it, I am going to go down. It makes it a lot worse for players who want to stay on the feet. I remember years and years ago for Liverpool, Steven Gerrard against Sheffield United. I don't know if you can remember that. He got clattered in the box, but he stayed on his feet, put the ball wide, and the referee gave a penalty because it was technically a foul the way the defender slid in and dived in. He thought, wow, a referee with some common sense. And then you never seen it again. Once in 20 years isn't good enough, I'm afraid. So this is a good question for Richard, obviously, because you're not involved in it. Who's staying up and who's going down?
Oh, that's a tough one. Really, really tough one. Do you know what? I think Sheffield United and West Brom are down, even though Albion have had a little bit of a turn up. And Allardyce, to his credit, is doing a decent job and has brought a few decent players in. But same again, they can't score. I think you guys will just scrape it. I think Fulham will stay up. My team that I think will go down is Brighton at the minute. I think they are falling like a stone, and even though they're playing decent football, they can't win. So what happens when they start playing badly? Because inevitably the confidence will drop, and they will start to put poor performances in. So so I think even though you guys are playing, not the greatest at the minute, there can be an upturn in form. Whereas I think Brighton are pretty much playing at their max level. They're not scoring, and their performances can only drop. So yeah, I think at the minute my bet would be Brighton, West Brom, and Sheffield United.
Yeah, I echo that. I called out Brighton quite a while ago because they weren't scoring goals, and their running at the end of the season is shocking. It's a horrible running. It's worse than ours, which is why I think we may just stay up. So it's going to be tight. Craig, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think when you look at it, those obviously West Brom and Sheffield United are gone. I think it's going to be a miracle for them to stay up. But I know was it Leeds against West Ham? I seen somebody on Twitter after they lost saying, "I know it's 9 points, but this is Leeds." And he's thinking,
yeah,
that they're only 9 points ahead, but you're thinking there's 10 games left. Is it as far up as that is going to get drawn in? You can't really see anywhere other than Southampton, Crystal Palace, Burnley getting dragged back into it. But I think, like you're saying, Brighton are playing well but not winning, and they're either going to win 8 of the last 10 games, or they're going to lose 8 of the last 10 and go down. So, I would Sheffield United, West Brom, and then if I'm got to pick one, I like Fulham, I like Newcastle, obviously. So it's going to have to be Brighton or Burnley. I like Burnley to go down if we're picking teams I don't like.
Yeah. But Burnley always seem to get a result from somewhere, though, don't they? They always seem to pick up a couple of results that you don't expect them to get. I can't see Leeds getting dragged into it. They'll end up. I think they've got Chelsea on the weekend. They could go quite easily beat Chelsea. They can pick up results from anywhere. So yeah,
I agree. Well, Paul feels confident. Thomas feels confident, and Paul doesn't. That doesn't surprise me. But yeah, I echo what Craig said there. I mean, Palace for me, a team that I thought would get dragged into it, but then they keep getting these weird results, don't they? I mean, look at the way they got battered off Brighton, and then they've beaten 2-1, wasn't it? And I was thinking, how the hell have they won that game? But that's Brighton for you, the way they're playing at the moment. Great football. Go and put the ball in the net, and you don't get points for that, do you? So. Yeah, it's going to be a tight one, and I would like to hope Newcastle will get out of it, but I'm not confident. Right, that's the end of the show, boys. Craig, thank you very much for coming on as always. I'm sure you'll be on again between you and Jim. Richard, thank you very, very much for coming on and agreeing to spend most of the evening with me. You've been a great help for the show, so thank you very much. Do you mind just hanging on 2 seconds in the back while I just close the show out?
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Awesome. Thank you. So that's it. A look ahead now finished. We look on for 3 points tomorrow against Villa. And after what Richard said, I think it's going to be a very, very tough game now. And I was hoping for a few more injuries and a better update for the Toon. But Villa have got a strong outfit, strong team. Ollie Watkins banging in goals. Ross Barkley, obviously an England international. They're going to cause us threats. So we've got to hope we're at our best. Just a final shout out for the competition. Like I said, as soon as I reach 500 subscribers, one lucky viewer will win Alan Shearer's testimonial program, a retro shirt, and a Peter Beardsley signed card, all for free. All you got to do is subscribe. You get your name pulled out of the hat. I'll send it to you in the post. And the other thing is I do have more prizes in the future, which you'll be automatically entered into as well. And just to try and put a smile on some Geordies, look at them. All the heroes from back in the day. So I just thought I'd pop that up just to try and end the show on a bit of a high rather than listening to us probably getting beat. But thank you very much, everyone, for listening. If you enjoyed the show, like, share, and please subscribe. And let's hope for 3 points for tomorrow. Have a good evening, everyone.